The night started like any other. Quiet streets, empty highways, nothing out of the ordinary. The kind of night where you feel safe driving alone because nothing ever happens in towns like this. Or at least, that's what people tell themselves. At exactly 11:47 p.m., a dashcam on a lonely road in Nevada captured something that would later leave investigators completely speechless. A single car, headlights on, driving perfectly straight, suddenly veered off the road at full speed. There was no obstacle, no animal, no other vehicle, just an empty stretch of highway. And then, chaos. When police arrived minutes later, they found the car upside down, engine still running, radio still playing softly, and the driver unconscious but alive. What made this terrifying wasn't the crash itself, it was what the dashcam showed in the final seconds. Right before the car swerved, a dark, human-like shadow appeared in the middle of the road for less than 1 second, then vanished. The driver, a 34-year-old man, later told doctors he remembered seeing someone standing there, but when he blinked, the road was empty again. Toxicology reports came back clean. No alcohol, no drugs, no medical conditions that could explain hallucinations. His eyes were checked, his brain was scanned, and everything came back normal. Yet he was absolutely certain of what he saw. When investigators slowed down the footage frame by frame, the shadow was still there, too tall to be an animal, too narrow to be a person, and completely silent. The video was sent to multiple experts, but no one could agree on what it was. Some called it a glitch, others claimed it was a trick of the light, but none of those explanations could explain why the car reacted as if something was truly there. This wasn't the only case. Just months later, in a quiet town in Ohio, a school bus carrying 8 children lost control on a straight road in broad daylight. The weather was clear, the road was dry, and the driver had over 20 years of experience. Witnesses said the bus suddenly swerved as if avoiding something invisible, slammed into a ditch, and rolled onto its side. Miraculously, no one died. When questioned, the driver kept repeating the same sentence over and over. "It stepped in front of me." He described a pale figure, tall and thin, standing in the road for just a split second before disappearing. Traffic cameras near the area showed nothing unusual, just the bus drifting sharply for no clear reason. Police marked both cases as driver error, but the similarities were impossible to ignore. Different states, different drivers, same story, same sudden movement, same description of something that was never there. Locals began whispering that the roads were cursed, that something was watching, waiting for the right moment to appear. Officials dismissed these claims, but even they couldn't deny one disturbing fact. Over the next year, 3 more accidents happened on roads with no visible cause, and every single driver described seeing something that should not exist. What if these crashes weren't random? What if they were warnings? Or worse, what if they were tests? Because as investigators would soon discover, the truth behind these accidents was far more disturbing than anyone could imagine. The deeper investigators looked, the more unsettling the pattern became. These accidents weren't just happening anywhere. They were all taking place on long, empty stretches of road, far from city lights, far from help, far from witnesses. Places where your mind is quiet, where your thoughts drift, where you're alone with the dark. It was as if whatever caused these crashes needed isolation to appear. State police quietly shared reports between Nevada, Ohio, and 2 other states, trying to see if the drivers had anything else in common. Different ages, different backgrounds, different vehicles. The only shared detail was this: every driver had slowed down just slightly moments before the crash, as if they had already sensed something before seeing it. Then a new case changed everything. In Arizona, a woman driving home after a late shift suddenly slammed on her brakes in the middle of a deserted highway. The car behind her barely missed hitting her. When officers arrived, she was shaking uncontrollably, staring straight ahead, whispering, "It's still there." She insisted a tall, shadowy figure was standing in the road for just a split second before disappearing. Traffic cameras near the area showed nothing unusual, just the bus drifting sharply for no clear reason. Engineers examined the data and were stunned. The sensors showed a solid shape roughly human-sized for less than half a second, then nothing. No heat signature, no reflection, no physical trace. According to science, that shouldn't be possible. The system was either malfunctioning or it had detected something that wasn't fully there. Word of these cases began to spread quietly among emergency responders. Paramedics talked about drivers who stared into empty space after crashes. Tow truck operators claimed they felt watched on certain highways at night. Even one highway patrol officer admitted he refused to stop his cruiser on a specific road because he always felt like someone was standing just beyond the headlights. Then, without warning, the accidents stopped. For nearly 2 years, there were no similar reports, no unexplained swerves, no phantom figures. Investigators assumed the cases were coincidences, until one final crash reopened everything. This time, there was no survivor. The car was found in a river under a collapsed bridge in rural Montana. The dashcam was still recording. When the footage was reviewed, the car could be seen slowing down on a straight road. The headlights flickered, and in the reflection of the windshield, something appeared behind the driver, tall, dark, and close. The driver turned his head for just a split second, and that's when the car veered off the bridge. The file was sealed, the footage was locked away, and the official cause was listed as loss of control. But those who saw the video know the truth. Whatever is on those roads isn't a glitch, it isn't a shadow, and it isn't gone.
Years passed, and the story faded into rumors, forgotten forum posts, and old police files buried deep in state archives. Most people assumed the mystery had been solved, or at least safely ignored. But strange things have a way of resurfacing when no one expects them. In 2025, a college research group studying unexplained transportation accidents requested access to sealed case summaries through a public records loophole. What they discovered sent chills through everyone who read the files. Hidden among hundreds of routine crash reports were at least 12 incidents that matched the exact same pattern. No mechanical failure, no weather issue, no medical emergency, and yet the same sudden swerve as if avoiding something invisible. One detail stood out more than anything else. Every accident occurred within a few miles of land that once held abandoned towns, forgotten cemeteries, or old mining camps. Places erased from maps, but not from history. When the researchers overlaid crash locations with historical records, the points lined up almost perfectly. It was as if the roads themselves had been built straight through places that were never meant to be disturbed. Some locals claimed they had always avoided those highways after dark, saying they felt cold even in summer, or that their radios filled with static for no reason. One of the students decided to test the theory. He drove to one of the marked locations late at night, camera running, heart pounding, convinced nothing would happen. For the first 10 minutes, there was only silence. Then, without warning, his dashboard lights dimmed, the radio crackled, and a shape appeared at the very edge of his headlights, too dark to see clearly, but tall enough to block the road. He slammed the brakes and screamed. When he looked again, the road was empty. The footage showed a strange distortion in the air, like heat waves right where he claimed the figure stood. He never returned to that project again. The research group released a short report before their university shut the study down, calling it unverified and potentially harmful. But copies of the report leaked online, and people began sharing their own stories, near misses, sudden fear, a feeling that something had stepped into their path when nothing was there. Some even claimed the figures were not trying to cause harm, but to stop drivers from going somewhere they shouldn't. No one knows the truth. Maybe these are echoes of the past tied to the land. Maybe they are warnings. Or maybe one night, when the road is empty and the world is silent, you'll see something standing in your headlights and realize you were never driving alone. And that is the part no one wants to talk about. The idea that these accidents might not be attacks at all, but interventions. Some investigators who worked on the early cases admitted, off the record, that a few crash sites were located only minutes away from far worse dangers: washed-out bridges, rock-slide zones, unstable cliffs, or roads that collapsed weeks later. In 2 of the original cases, construction crews later discovered massive cracks under the asphalt, places that could have given way at any moment. If the drivers had continued straight, they might not have survived. The crashes, as horrific as they were, may have been the only reason those people lived. But that theory raises an even darker question. Why use fear? Why appear as something that looks unnatural, something that triggers panic? Psychologists suggested that the human brain is hardwired to react instantly to a human-like shape in danger zones. Whatever these figures are, if they exist, they may be using that instinct as a tool, not to hurt, but to stop. Still, not every story has a miracle ending. In the sealed Montana case, engineers found no structural faults ahead, no hidden dangers, nothing that could explain why the driver needed to be stopped, which means either the system failed or not every intervention is meant to save. That possibility haunts those who know the file exists. Today, the highways are busier than ever, and most people will never experience anything strange. But every year, a few unexplained crashes still slip through official explanations, labeled as distractions, fatigue, or simple mistakes. Their details are quietly archived. Their footage is rarely released. So, the next time you're driving late at night, alone, with only your headlights cutting through the dark, remember this. If you ever feel the urge to slow down for no reason, or if your eyes catch a shape that vanishes too fast to understand, don't ignore it. Some warnings only appear once.